Well, now turning to news from Nigeria, Jafaru Isa, one of the governors of, a former governor rather, of Kaduna State and a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress, has returned about $500,000 of the $850,000 he allegedly received from embattled ex-National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki. According to a local publication, Isa, who is a close friend and ally of President Muhammadu Buhari, returned the money after intense grilling by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. He had been arrested last week in an ongoing investigation into $2 billion meant to buy military equipment to fight militant Islamist group Boko Haram, which had allegedly gone missing during the rule of ex-President Goodluck Jonathan. Well, for more on the story, we're now joined live by our correspondent, Sophia Adengo, in Abuja, Nigeria. Sophia, this is quite unprecedented. A high-ranking Nigerian official not only admitting guilt, but also returning money that he has taken illegally. Now, of course, one has to wonder if he's been exonerated and how Nigerians have reacted to this development.
Well, it's interesting to note that the proceedings have been televised on the national, television outlet here in Nigeria. And, he was wheeled in, not feeling entirely too well, but wheeled into the hearings probing this arms deal that has turned into a billion-dollar sort of debacle in which high-ranking officials have been coming forward and stating their participation in the procurement process. Of course, Nigerians have had mixed feelings in that it's not just the official, but also others linked to the probe that need to come forward and also, hand over monies that necessarily did not belong to them or were taken under scrupulous means. This is not the only case that is pending. In fact, not really anything too, too interesting to look into. What he more or less acts as an example that President Muhammadu Buhari will show a certain level of leniency to individuals who have been serving in the government and who have stashed, cash or any kind of assets that originally did not belong to them, but in fact belong to taxpayers and also the government. At the moment, of course, there are still, proceedings and judiciary process that follows this case. However, it is indeed, a stamp of approval, not only from Nigerians, but also President Buhari's campaign in fighting corruption here in Nigeria.
Well, as you say, this probe is far from over, and President Buhari does appear steadfast in this fight against corruption cartels. From what you know, who's next then? And is there a likelihood that former President Goodluck Jonathan himself might be targeted?
Well, it's interesting. Staying with this arms probe deal, it's difficult to pinpoint who is next, but it's interesting to know who are still in the fray of the investigation. Interesting to note the former finance minister, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She, was at the height of the arms procurement within Goodluck Jonathan's government. And so questions surround her and what happened to this billion-dollar fund that went to these purchasing of arms. And if indeed a clearance was given by former President Goodluck Jonathan, to what extent did he know where the funds were going and how that translated in the actual fight against Boko Haram and buying, the hardware that was required in the actual, forefront fight. But, taking a step back and looking at President Muhammadu Buhari's anti-corruption campaign here in Nigeria, it seems nobody is off limits, no matter how high-ranking they are.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. That update from Sophia Adengo in Abuja, Nigeria.